Hello there, thank you for joining me here on Alyssa Jean's Reviews. My name is Alyssa and this is my review and ranking video for Star Wars Visions Season 1. Not sure if there's going to be a Season 2 or not, but when you go on Disney Plus, it says Season 1, so I'll call it that. So the first piece of this will be my spoiler-free review. So if you have not seen it yet, you're good on the first part of it as I give my overall thoughts on the first season of Star Wars Visions. But then what I'm going to do is rank each of the 9 episodes from number 9, my least favorite, up to number 1, my most favorite of the episodes. So once I get into that, I'm going to be very spoilery. So if you are a spoiler-free person, you will have to exit once I get to my ranking part of this video. But I do highly recommend you go and watch Star Wars Visions. I quite enjoyed it. So here's my overall thoughts. I thought it was a very interesting concept when I first heard of it. Now, if you don't know what it is an anthology series of 9 different anime shorts related to Star Wars. They are non-canon Star Wars stories made by 9 different anime producers, and there are 9 different styles of anime. And I'm not an anime fan, just so you know, and I quite enjoyed these. Some of these are the more traditional, like, I don't know, Pokemon looking kind of anime style. Those are probably the ones I liked a little less, but there's a lot of room for creativity here. There's a lot of ones that I think are very heavily influenced by ancient Japanese culture, and those are probably some of my favorite ones. Because Star Wars itself was influenced by George Lucas's love of samurai films, so it was kind of indirectly influenced by ancient Japanese culture in and of itself. So having Star Wars stories with a really heavy Japanese tinge on it works really well. So I liked quite a lot of these episodes. Now there are a couple of them that are big stinkers, but I think that's going to be the case in pretty much any anthology series, in my opinion. And I'm going to start with those first because I'm going to go from my least favorite to favorite. So I'll tell you, there's 2 of them that I really did not like. But most of them were at least decent, at least okay, and a couple of them I really liked quite a lot. Now, I heard that people complained about the not canon thing. Oh, why were we going to watch it? It was not canon. Well, here's the thing about it not being canon is that they have a lot more room, a lot more freedom to play with the Star Wars ideas, and they're not tied to any particular canon, which works well in a lot of cases. Some of these stories seem to me to almost be taking place in sort of a parallel universe of our known Star Wars universe. Like, you wouldn't be able to see how it directly relates to the characters that we know. Some of them do seem like they could easily fall right into our known Star Wars universe. There's one that actually has a couple of cameos from known characters. Most of them do not, though. Most of them, you kind of, you just don't really know when and where it's taking place, and I like that. I like that it's just a Star Wars story. Like, you don't have to be bogged down about, oh, well, they got this wrong because he did this before that, and that person was alive when that, blah, 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 and getting into nitpicking like we do with the Star Wars and Star Trek stuff that we watch. Just nitpicking in canon, and we don't have to worry about that because it's not canon. So they just have a lot more freedom. And I'll talk about it as I go through these episodes, as I rank them, where some of the ones where I think kind of seem parallel universe-y to me. And I like that. So I'll talk about that as I go through the episodes. So I really enjoyed it. So if you're a spoiler-free person, please go watch it. It's worth it. And then come back and watch my rankings, which I'm about to get into right now. So I'm going to rank from my least favorite episode to my favorite episode, and then I'll come back here at the end and I'll give you my rating out of 10 for the series overall, or the season overall, I should say. So here we go. If you're a spoiler-free person, bye-bye. Go watch it, come back, and watch the rest of my video later. So we are going to start with my least favorite episode of the season. So, starting with number 9, my least favorite episode, episode 6, TOB1, or I guess to be one, if you want to get cutesy with it. So, what this looked like to me is like something I might see one of my friends' kids watching, because I don't have my own kids. But like, I think my best friend's like 3-year-old son would quite enjoy this. Like, this seems like a 5-year-old or under type of thing. I'm a 47-year-old grown-ass woman, so this really was not interesting to me. So definitely by far my least favorite episode, and I was really glad when it was over. At number 8, episode 2, Tatooine Rhapsody. This is another one I really did not like at all. So this was dumb. Like, okay, so I know we have seen bands and musicians in Star Wars. Obviously, there's the Cantina musicians. There's musicians who play for Jabba the Hutt in his palace and Return of the Jedi. I get that, but the fact that there would be some cheesy 1990s alternative rock band going around playing music is dumb. And one of the band members, the one who is about to be executed and they're trying to save, is, I guess, a slug, they call him. So he's one of the, whatever, the Jabba the Hutt species, but he has long hair. It's just dumb. This episode was so dumb. I just feel dumber for having sat through it. So yeah, also one I really did not like at all. At number 7 on my ranking list, episode 9, AKAKIRI. So, this to me was basically a retread of the Anakin Skywalker story from Star Wars Episode 3. And it wasn't anywhere near as good. They had crammed it into 20 minutes. It was characters I did not care about. And characters, quite frankly, they were inferior to the characters we know. As particularly the Sith Lord here. This character was ridiculous. Definitely no Palpatine. And also, that Anakin story really broke my heart. You know, it's a very powerful story, but it's heartbreaking to watch, especially now that I've seen the Clone Wars series and seen how good of a person Anakin can be. It's a heartbreaking story. So why do I want to see that again, crammed into a 20-minute episode? So I really did not care for this one, and also was a very odd choice to end the season, being that it ends on such a down note, whereas all the other episodes end on a, if not positive note, at least a hopeful note, like we're hopeful for the future. So it's weird to end a series that usually has positive endings with an episode that has a very downer ending, and that's how the season ends. That's very strange. I don't think this should have been the last episode of the season. But anyways, this is number 7 on my list. At number 6 on my list, episode 4, The Village Bride. So, I'm a hippie, so I'm really into this whole connection with the earth thing. So, I found that some of these scenes were really beautiful, but I also found this episode to be kind of slow and boring, and it was hard for me to really get attached to these characters. I didn't know until I watched other people's videos that this was a Jedi who had escaped from Order 66, and she was hiding, and that's where she was wearing the COVID mask. It looked like she was wearing a COVID mask. I was like, oh, there's COVID in the Star Wars universe. Jedi can get COVID. But anyways, like, I didn't really catch that that's what the deal was. I guess I must have missed that line because the dialogue is so slow and boring. It probably had drifted off. Wasn't paying attention. But yeah, I mean, this episode was fine. It was okay. Kind of follows the classic Western format, which I guess originated in samurai movies format that I used to complain about The Mandalorian doing all the time. But that's fine. There's actually another episode that I really liked to follow that same format, so I won't hold it against it. Yeah, this episode was fine. It was okay. It's number 6 on my list. And number 5 on my list, episode 3, the twins. So this is one that really stands out to me as like a parallel universe-y type of episode. It's almost kind of a what if sort of deal. Like, what if Luke and Leia were actually clones created for the dark side instead of Anakin's children? Because that's what it really reminded me of. You know, twins, one's female, one's male, and they're both Jedi. So it made me think of Luke and Leia, except that obviously these twins are different. They were clones made for the dark side. Now, I did enjoy a lot of the animation here. A lot of the battle scenes, a lot of the space scenes were really cool. Characters were a little corny to me, especially the female character, and I had a hard time buying that our male character was ever actually bred for the dark side, because he seemed like a totally good dude. He seemed like Luke Skywalker to me, so I don't know if I really bought that he was a clone specifically made for the dark side, but it was kind of an interesting story. I kind of like this one. Didn't blow me away or anything, but I kind of like this one, so it comes in at number 5. Number 4 on my list, episode 7, The Elder. So this appears to be the only one that is set in prequel era times. If this is set in the actual Star Wars universe, that's where it would be, and I like that. I want to see more of that era outside of the Clone Wars. I would love to see some stories at some point in time that take place pre-Phantom Menace, and that time period where we get to see a Padawan and a master, which is what we see here. I also thought the animation was very cool. This screenshot here shows us a very cool lightsaber battle where it's mostly black and white, but then the lightsabers are in color, and that's true of another episode that I love, which I'll get to a little bit later. But yeah, I really like this one, and I appreciate the fact that in the end, the Jedi Master says, yeah, I didn't defeat this guy. Time defeated him. I would never have been able to defeat him in his prime. I thought that was very interesting. And I like that we don't have to think about, like, how does this connect to the other Star Wars stories? Who is this Sith? I really like that freedom in viewing this, that I can just enjoy it as a story. And that's true of a lot of these episodes, but in particular, this one. So I really enjoyed this one quite a lot. At number 3, episode 8, Lop and Ocho. So this episode was very efficient in telling its story in the time that it had. We got a lot of character development in here, and it was a very emotionally powerful story for such a short episode. So in the beginning, they give you a little bit of a misdirect that maybe the father is the one who's not really going to approve of this adopted bunny daughter from Bunnyland. I don't know where she is from, but it seemed like he was not all into adopting her, and the daughter was really into it. But when you look at how it ends and look at it in retrospect, it seems to me that the daughter kind of really only ever thought of this bunny girl as sort of a toy, a plaything, something that she could own, and never really actually cared about her. And it turns out that the father is actually the one who is full of caring and emotions and cares for his estranged daughter even after she goes and joins the Empire. It's just such an emotionally powerful story. This was so good for something that was so short. So though the animation doesn't blow me away as much as the animation in some of these other ones, particularly the next two that I'm going to talk about, the story was really, really good here. I would actually watch another episode set in this same universe. It's very interesting. Number 2, episode 1, The Duel. So this is the first episode of the season, and it ends up being my second favorite. In fact, after it finished, I thought to myself, most of these episodes are probably not going to be this good, and I was proven correct immediately because the next episode was that Tatooine Rhapsody nonsense. But this episode I loved, and it's not because of the story. This is the episode I was referring to earlier that also takes on that kind of Mandalorian format. You've got your wanderer, your stranger wandering into a town who are under attack by some villains of some sort, and the wanderer ends up saving them. That's overdone in The Mandalorian. I used to complain about that all the time, and I guess it's a classic Western trope as well as a classic samurai film trope, but I don't care about any of that. The animation blew me away. This is the one episode that really made me feel like I was watching a Japanese, ancient Japanese folktale set in the Star Wars universe, and it fit so perfectly. It fit like a glove. I love the way that the droids were drawn. It looked like an ancient Japanese droid, but it was making R2-D2 noises. So perfect. And I love the fact that it was in black and white, as I kind of mentioned with the Elder as well. We're in black and white, but then we have the colors of the lightsabers to contrast it. And this is especially powerful when we see our hero pull out a red lightsaber, and I'll get into theories of that in just a second. But I loved everything about this episode. I loved the battle at the end between the two Jedis, and there's a lot of those Jedi versus Sith battles throughout these episodes, but I think this is my favorite one. When they're on that log in the water, it kind of mirrored Obi-Wan and Anakin in the lava, in my opinion. I don't know if that was intentional or not, but as far as who this character is, well, for one thing, that's another great thing about this episode that leaves it ambiguous, and yet it doesn't matter. You can still appreciate the character and the story without really knowing his full story, but it seems to me that he is just somebody who either was a former Sith himself and turned to the light, or someone who had killed Sith and taken their kyber crystals, so he had a red lightsaber. Either way, he's clearly a very good person. He's not a Sith, but it is interesting that he threw people off with the color of his lightsaber. There's a lot of things that were very interesting about this episode, so that is why it ends up at number 2 on my ranking list. At number 1, my favorite episode of the season, episode 5, The Ninth Jedi. So this one, I want to see this show. I want them to make a show out of this. I would watch that. So first of all, the animation, particularly when they were doing the voiceovers in the beginning and showing kind of the space shots, I thought really blew me away. I thought the animation was absolutely spectacular. I also find this one to be kind of parallel universe-y, but a more interesting type of parallel universe type of thing than the Twins episode, as this appears to be in a world where the Jedi have been extinct, but they kind of still exist, but they no longer have lightsabers. Lightsabers are extinct, which doesn't really quite match up to our world, but I find it extraordinarily interesting. And what I find the most interesting is the fact that lightsabers are colorless when they are first made, but they adapt a color to match their owner. And what an ingenious concept. I can't believe that the actual Star Wars didn't do this. It makes so much sense, and is extremely powerful when all of a sudden all those Jedi go whoop in their red lightsabers, because those are actually Sith who had killed the original Jedi that one dude had summoned. And it was a nice little twist that dude was actually the good guy, although I saw that coming because he seems so obviously to be a Sith, the way he was wearing the Darth Vader helmet, that he was almost assuredly not a Sith. But it still worked to have that little twist that all these other people were the Sith. And the main character here, the daughter of the lightsaber maker, is basically a female Luke Skywalker. We don't get too much into her story here, but I would follow it. I want a show out of this. This was 23 minutes long, the longest episode of the season, and it wasn't long enough for me. I was really, really into this world. I would love to see a show set in this world that is kind of like our Star Wars universe, but maybe a little different. I'm very, very interested in this. And as I said, the animation at times really blows me away. So I absolutely love this episode, and it was my favorite, number 1 of the season on my ranking list. So that is my rankings from least favorite to favorite. Now I have one last piece of business before I let you go, and that is to give an overall rating for the season as a whole. So I always will give a show or a season a rating out of 10, with 1 being the lowest possible score and 10 being the highest possible score. So my rating for Star Wars Visions Season 1 out of 10 is an 8. I was really torn between a 7, a 7.5, or maybe an 8, and after giving it some thought, this really is worthy of an 8. Can't give it higher than an 8 because of the 2 episodes I really did not like, and some of the other ones were just okay, but I really love this concept, and I really love the execution on a few of these, and I would like to see a season 2, whether it be 9 different anime producers, or maybe a couple of these, like the ones that I like, when we get a sequel, follow-up in season 2, that might be interesting. So yeah, I'd be down for a season 2 for this show. So very solid 8, definitely worth watching, but of course if you've made it this far in the video, you have already seen it, hopefully, or you just got the crap spoiled out of you. Anyways, thank you for joining me for this video. Check out all my other Star Wars and Star Trek related stuff, and all my trans related stuff, MCU related stuff, everything on my channel. Check it out. Subscribe, subscribe, subscribe. And I will see you soon. Goodbye.